Hello, everyone, and welcome to this continuation conversation about faith integration and learning. We are really pleased to have these conversations through the CCCU. And I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Reverend Dr. Lena Crouso, and I currently serve the CCCU as the Senior Advisor and Fellow for Diversity. And it is an honor to moderate this conversation with these esteemed scholars who are doing some great work in the field of faith integration and really thinking about it from not only a scholarship perspective, but also what it means for the communities that we serve in Christian higher ed. So I'd like to introduce our guests today. And we have Dr. Nicole Eastes. She serves at Sterling College, an assistant professor, the clinical education coordinator for the athletic training program, and the director for the integration of faith and learning. We welcome you. Dr. Allin Means is at Missouri Baptist University, where he serves as the Associate Dean of the School of Communications, a professor, and the director of the university's Faith and Research Conference. And then Emily Milnes serves at Pepperdine University School of Public Policy as the Director of Recruitment and Program Relations. She's also a licensed attorney with a background in immigration law. So we welcome all three of you, and thank you so much for being here. I'd like to take just a moment to have you each just maybe give some opening remarks and just kind of set the tone for what you'd like to share. And then I'm going to go into some questions that I think will lead us into some great conversation. So could we start with you, Nicole?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'm just really excited to, meet some new colleagues that I didn't know before today, and just really kind of dialogue about this and have these conversations so that we can hopefully help other CCCU schools really look at what does it mean to integrate faith and learning, and hopefully, walk away from it learning some things myself as well.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Let's hear from Emily now.
I would echo everything that Nicole said. It's just a privilege to be here with you, and so grateful for the work that CCCU does in supporting schools all around the world in thinking very intentionally and thoughtfully about what it means to equip students to love God and love man well. So grateful for this conversation and colleagues here.
Very good. And Alan, please.
I could not agree more. It's just so exciting to be a part of this. I was just delighted to be invited. I've taught for, gosh, I think this is my 25th year. This is my second career, and I taught at public schools and private schools, and I love them all. Of course, it's the greatest job in the world. But there's just something special about teaching at a Christian university where you're always thinking about new ways to approach our faith, whether it's in a classroom or in an academic, research type setting or a scholarly setting. And so I'm excited, as I've just become the associate dean. I'm excited to begin to work more closely with the CCCU in the future. One of my former colleagues works for the CCCU, and she and I are going to touch base a lot more often, because this is such an important resource for universities nationwide. And just thankful to be a part of this. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you, all three of you, for articulating kind of like that foundation and why this is so important. And thank you for making that connection to the CCCU, because it's so true, being the leading voice for Christian higher ed. It's really important that, we continue to have these conversations. And I think that's one of the key elements for the CCCU, that we want to have conversations from all these diverse perspectives, but then frame us together into the work that God has given us, right? The kingdom work that we are all connected to. And I think that's also the beauty of what it means to be connected to Christian higher ed through all these different perspectives, but all kind of converging into this serving Christ and serving others. So thank you so much. So let's dive into some questions, and I'm going to throw out the questions, and then we will, I'll prompt you to respond, but I also want it to be conversational. So feel free to respond to each other as well. We want it to be a conversation, not just a panel. So let's just jump in, shall we? Okay. So we all work at Christ-centered institutions whose missions are built on the central belief that faith-integrated learning is essential to the experience.
Mm.
So how do you respond to someone off campus? So think about the audience. How do you respond to someone off campus who asks why that kind of learning experience matters for anyone who isn't a student or faculty member there? So really focusing in on someone that may not really be in tune to this idea of faith being integrated into learning. How might you respond to why it's so essential? And so let's work backwards this time. And Allin, I'm going to let you open it up, and then we'll just go back to Emily and then Nicole, and then let's have that conversation around that question, because I think it's very pertinent to how we are relevant still in the world. So
yeah, you're exactly right. You know, at MBU, we're an evangelical university, and we welcome all students from all walks of life, and so it seems like it's the relational aspect that we hope draws them here. And then even if they just only know us because we have the word Baptist in our name, and we have a lot of athletes, and they come for scholarshiping, and we love to have them, and they may have never been in a church before or had any Christian influence whatsoever. So we just feel like it kind of begins with that that relationship. And then when they arrive, you know, we're not going to just be disciples in the 1970s sense of the word, where you go to door and ask everybody if they're saved. But we want to show them what Christ looks like in what we do, and I think that's what makes us. That's kind of what sets us apart. It's a tough question. I read the question. I even thought about writing notes as what I was thinking about running it through ChatGPT, but I did not do that. But it's a tough question, isn't it? Because, you know, it's almost like you have to get them here before they see that or they're part of that relationship, or that they're part of that kind of connection with faculty and other students. And so it's a really a challenging question, but I do think that at the end of the day, you know, the ethic that a Christian higher education institution centers around is just crucial, and it's so important to a student's development on the whole. So, you know, when people say, well, why do you like working at MBU? You know, and I'm like, well, I love being around Christians. I love talking to students, whether they're Christians or not Christians. I love everything I love the openness that we can have in our discussions. We don't have to check things at the door. We can really talk about things and dive in deep. And you know, we're not here to God will do the saving. We're just here to kind of be that vessel if possible. So I think that's why this setting is so crucial. It's why I've been here longer than any other university. I just love the Christian setting for those reasons.
That's really that's really, you know, just framing out this understanding of, you know, the relational is what I'm just pulling out of what you're saying there, Allin.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part of what we're talking about. Let's continue and let's get some other perspectives as well.
Yeah, I would build off of that relational piece. As I was thinking about this question, I returned to Pepperdine University's mission statement, which is that we're a Christian institution that's committed to academic excellence, and it's to equip students for lives of purpose, service, and leadership. And it's those three last words in that phrase of purpose and service and leadership that I think is so crucial to having faith integrated learning. It's really introducing excellence in the classroom as we're pursuing truth, and we're pursuing what is good and right and beautiful, and wrestling with the really big questions with intellectual integrity and with honesty. But I think it also goes to casting a vision and a real imagination for what could be. You know, I think C.S. Lewis talks about a baptism of imagination.
Yes.
And so in the Christian university setting, what does that mean? As faculty and staff are coming alongside students both in the classroom and outside of the classroom, and giving them real skills of excellence and questions to wrestle with, but thinking through, like, how does one pursue excellence, pursue truth, love God, love man well, both in the classroom but outside of the classroom. And I think that's why that faith integrated learning is so important because it's lifting the vision and the imagination from being so inward to looking outward and saying, how can I pursue excellence in all areas of life? And it's going to that why and what's it all for. But then we know when the students leave the classroom, they go, the world, there's a lot of work to do, and it's amazing work. But the work is a marathon, and it requires people, men and women, who are willing to show up and do the hard work and stick with it for the long haul. And I think when you're learning in the faith integrated classroom, Christ came, he died, he saved us, and now he set us free to be light in the world. There's something that gives fuel to the work that's for the long haul. So faith integrated learning is so critical, both in formation in the student, in the classroom, but also for the long haul of the work and life that's ahead.
Yeah, Emily, just you springboarding off of the relational, but, I think it's so important that people also understand, maybe that aren't connected to Christian higher learning, that, or Christian higher ed, that, academic excellence is preeminent. We are scholars in our work, and that we do connect that all truth is God's truth, right? Regardless of how it gets, put into places and spaces. And so this idea of the imagination and engaging in it to bring these inquiries, right? Christian liberal arts learning. It's a powerful thing. And then to engage it in a way that we are preparing, the men and women, the students that come to us to be engaged in the world, to mutually work with God. So I think that those aspects that you've, kind of lifted out as well, I think are giving some really great insights to what we would share with someone who wasn't connected to Christian higher ed. Well, Nicole, let's continue that.
Yeah, some of my thoughts kind of in thinking about this question go right along with Allin and Emily's. Really just thinking about what does it mean to have a holistic approach to education. Being in my area of healthcare and health in general, kind of specializing in those things, there's just this push, whether you're in a secular culture or you're in a Christian faith-based culture, there's a push for a holistic approach, right? And looking at the whole person in order to be well and have that sense of well-being and what it means to even be successful. There really is this big focus on the whole person. And I think that whether somebody comes to a place like Sterling or any of these other institutions as a Christian, maybe they're young in their faith, maybe they're mature in their faith, or maybe they have no interest whatsoever in pursuing a faith with Christ. I just think that this type of education helps those students to wrestle with some of those tough life questions, helps them to, in a safe space, right? Think through, what does it mean to have integrity? What does it mean to even have faith and morals, and where does that come from? And how does that then apply to my future vocation? And to me, that's kind of really like at the core of it, right? And hopefully in their time here, I think all of our prayer is that those students that don't know Christ would come to know him, and that those students who do know Christ would grow deeper, right? Because that's where we're always pursuing. But that marrying those two things together of faith and learning, I think just helps us take the faith aspect and understand that affects our vocation. It affects what God has called us to do. And I go back to, as Emily was saying, the why, right? The why. And it really, I think there is so much burnout and, mental health struggles that people have been dealing with more and more. And so just when we look at how do we help our students be prepared for what they're going to face in the world, helping them to have that strong foundation in faith, and then also helping them to know how to stand on their morals and their integrity, and what those even are for them. Um,
Yes.
and again, that why changes everything. If you
Yeah.
have why, if you have that meaning and that purpose, it just changes that pursuit of excellence from being just, okay, I did it, right? I'm excellent in my field, to a continued growth and a continued pursuit of excellence because of who you're serving.
Hmm.
Mm. That's
Mhm.
that's really, a great encapsulation. This idea of the holistic being connected to being created in God's image, really takes us to the completeness of God's perfected way to create the completed being. And so we are holistic beings. And so I think that's really powerful that you would pull that out as well. Um, and the why, I think, gives a great rationale when, to this question, well, why? Why is that essential? And so this idea of looking at, really you can't have one without the other. They
Mhm.
infuse together the faith, the integration of faith and learning.
Mhm.
Let's continue with this particular question, but kind of give the second round, if you will, but not in order. But what other words might you want to put into the mix? And so let's get it down to maybe a few words, right? So not really the elevator speech, but if there were some words that you could wrap around this question. You have 30 seconds. Here I come. Why is the integration of faith and learning so important? Because I need to know. Tell me in a couple words. Give me something. What would you tell me? And you couldn't go on a philosophical journey with me. And this is for all of you. So
I feel like, it's feel like we're working with Gen Zers, and we know they want to make a difference. My generation, we'd go on mission trips occasionally, and we'd write checks when people came to our church. But these kids, they want to do good. If a tornado is blown through a town, they want to help, and
yeah.
I think that's common across the board. And so, I mean, to Emily's point of the why, it's like, why does this
Yeah.
generation care? And if we can kind of connect that to faith, I think that's crucial. It might be a way that God can kind of come into that mix. We have it easy here when we have Christian kids going and serving, but what about those kids who go along with the other kids, and they're still grappling
Yeah.
with this? And so I feel like if you can kind of combine where they are, and I think we're so, we talk about how the Gen Zs are entitled and things, and they expect things, and some of that might be true, but they really want to do good. They ask hard questions. They grapple with difficult questions.
Yes.
They want to change the world. They're not sure how yet, but I feel like if we come alongside them, we can help them really just let God work through them and us to find out their why on a bigger picture, rather than it just feels like the right thing to do. Oh, that was more than 30 seconds though. Sorry about that.
That's okay. But you know
Forgot about
what? That's important. That's important. Yeah. And to bring up the culture of the student today, I think has complete relevance, right? Yeah. Let's continue. Emily or Nicole, do you have anything to add to that little like prompting question I gave? Like, what would you say to my I've got a few 30 seconds. Why the integration of faith and learning?
I think I'm going to borrow from one of my colleagues, kind of a summary here really quickly. We had our honors convocation, which is our first convocation for the year, last Friday, and he gave the speech, the address, and he talked about AI in higher education, and really talked about this piece of, we're reaching an age or an era where we don't necessarily need the people to crunch the numbers and find all of the research and do all of the answers. We might need some people to fact check now and again, but we don't necessarily, less and less are we needing people for that. What we need people for is for the humanity. And we need to train people how to care for other people well. And how do we take what we're learning and then apply the moral element to it and apply the ethical element to it and actually care and not just be robots. And I think that a faith integrated classroom does that.
I think that's so beautiful. It's thinking about the Imago Dei and how do we care well for the Imago Dei.
Yes.
And so incorporating this idea of human dignity and inherent value, inherent value that is in each and every person. And so in a faith integrated classroom, it is going to that why, but it's also going to, again, what is it that's going to equip the student for the work in the long run? And you talk to students, it's exactly what Allin was saying. Students want to do good, but there's a lot of voices and a lot of pressure on them right now. True. And it's you've got to perform, you've got to do all these things by the time you're 22 years old, or else the world's going to fall apart. And giving them the freedom to know that there's a lot of voices and a lot of pressure, but there's only one voice that actually matters. And what is it that Jesus is calling them to do? And where is he telling them to go? And learning to recognize that voice. You can do that.
It's good.
I mean, life going forward, it's an adventure. And there's so much opportunity to have that sense of purpose and doing good in the world around them. Because they'll get to the right place at the right time and they'll hit that upward, the upward call and the mark of what God's calling them to do. So I think in faith integrated classrooms, it's really equipping students to walk in freedom and not have all of the pressure.
That's really good. Well, all of you, all three of you have really given some really great insight to this foundational understanding. Okay, why is the integration of faith and learning so important? But you mentioned the classroom, Emily, and that's a great springboard. So what I'd like you to do now is to think of in your particular area of leadership or scholarship, and then drawing on your own experience, I'd like you to think about the different things that happen, right, in the classroom or with students or in your role. And you think about maybe a seminar or performance that's based on, the discipline or a presentation or something. Get very tactical on the aspect of the learning action, if you will. And so how are these important for sharing the value of this faith-centered approach to learning that contributes to the learning process? So in other words, if you talk about a seminar, well, how in that seminar could you frame it that it would connect to this idea of faith, being integrated in the learning, or if it's a presentation or if it's a performance. So pick one thing and maybe just, in a short amount of time, because you don't get to plan your whole lesson or the whole event or the whole activity, but what might you say based on experiences that you've had as you've put something together that you've thought about what it needs to include because you want it to inform the learning with the faith?
Interesting. I don't want to just use this as an opportunity for a shameless plug of the Faith and Research Conference that I direct, but I will say, in all honesty, I took over the conference about 3 or 4 years ago because it was a small conference and it was mainly our own faculty members, and I just saw an opportunity to reach out to a larger audience, whether you were a Christian or a believer or not. And so, we decide on themes. The past 2 years ago was really mental health and the wholeness of creation was the title of our theme 2 years ago. And then last year, as we were kind of emerging from COVID, we all got together. It was it's kind of a committee, that does this. But last year, our theme was well-being, mind, body, and spirit. And then, of course,
Very
this year it's
good.
got to be something that has to do with artificial intelligence. That'll be our theme for this coming spring. But my point of bringing this up,
Absolutely.
yeah, I know we shifted gears entirely. I had a whole different thing going until November, until last November, October, November, when we're like, okay, it's time to shift gears. But all, these things that are relevant in our kind of our current culture. And when we saw statistics about students struggling with mental health issues, we said, all right, now let's build this year's conference around that. And so we invited people from all over, and a lot of folks, of course, present from here at Missouri Baptist University, as they should. It helps with their vita and so forth. But we also had speakers from different areas and secular schools, and we didn't question their faith. If they submitted a strong proposal that fit into our theme, then I added them to the docket. And so I just see that as a great way to kind of let the larger academic community. We must have 14 or 15 universities here in the St. Louis area, and it's just a great way to let this larger community know that we have logical areas that we can meet and visit and discuss together in the form of, in my case, in the form of the Faith and Research Conference.
No, I'm glad that you brought that up, because it really brings it down to your own personal experience and your own leadership and your own role. And that's really where we want to get very, tactical about, well, what do you know works? And I think that's a really incredible example for you to give. And thank you for sharing the depth of it and, kind of where you've taken it and where you might be going. And I think AI is probably an important place to start heading.
Yeah,
Indeed.
So be sure to reach out and submit something if you're working on something. It's a little too new to have a whole lot of research on it, but we're going to get creative discussions.
A quick little, item. I just recently saw a brief article that said that they are looking for highly equipped people in AI, and jobs are now at $900,000 salary. Yeah.
And
yeah.
For just
so here we go.
Prompt engineers. I mean, people who just learn how to write good prompts can make $300,000 a year. This is a crazy.
Right. And so, I think that prompts then another aspect of, what does this mean for our faith, right? In the midst of, even the programs that we, start, the majors that we want to offer, and all these kinds of things. And what does that mean? So I think that's excellent. Well, Emily, would you like to share one of your activities?
Sure.
Or
Yeah, and so my background is, I was a lawyer beforehand, and that's actually what brought me to Pepperdine in the first place. So at Pepperdine, we have what's called the Pudra Global Justice Institute. It's housed in the law school, and it's an opportunity for students to work around the world in public justice systems, come alongside and support the leaders who are doing courageous work there. And it means going into the prisons. It means going into the Supreme Court and coming alongside, and faculty go along, our administration go along. I was just in Uganda with our president and vice president in June in the prisons, alongside our students and students from other schools around the country, doing plea bargaining and working with dear friends there. And in that setting, it really is rolling up the sleeves and seeing that academic excellence that's taught in the classroom, mentored and discipled with faculty and administration, walking alongside them, but then implemented in real life, saying, what does this look like? And it's giving students a vision for what could be. Doesn't mean all of them will go into human rights law or practice immigration or, look at human trafficking, but it does give them an idea of what could be. And so I think that model of taking what's learned in the classroom, and exactly what Allin was talking about, like we need universities to think deeply on these topics and to think well, but we can't just stop there. We've got to take the good ideas and actually put them into action. And so at the policy school, we have students who they have to do an internship for graduation. They also have to write a capstone for graduation. And so our encouragement is always work alongside organizations or NGOs or governments and asking where are their gaps and how can we
Yes.
fill those gaps, meeting the requirements for the curriculum and the coursework, of course, but also saying, how can I actually use what's learned in the classroom and apply it in a very practical and real sense, recognizing that, they're not the hero of the story,
Mhm.
but they do get to be a part of it, which is
Mm.
really exciting.
That is very
Mhm.
exciting. Emily, it connects to something you said earlier, and it was just in a fleeting moment of a lot of things you said, but I picked up on it. And you mentioned love. This proverbial word of love, that God is love. And isn't it just glorious that, we through Christian higher ed, we are engaging in the work of God's love, around the world. And so, sometimes that gets kind of like lost, and so I think that's beautiful, the work that you're doing through that. Our students are engaging in real, visible work of God's love. And there they are in the midst of it with God, participating and cooperating with God on that. So that's a really great example. And that's good work. So yeah.
Mhm.
Cole, would you like to jump in on one of your offerings?
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the kind of things that came to my mind when I read through this question to start with was just this thought process of, um, like, what is kind of that day to day of the normal, right? Experiences,
Mhm.
and how do we make a difference in the lives of the people that we rub elbows with every single day, right? And be a
Yes.
light to those people. And that's kind of where my mind went with this. And so thinking about even just in the programs that we have here, and thinking about whether it's the athletic training program that I teach in, or it's our education program where we have student teachers going out, um, just making sure that we're first equipping them
Mhm.
before we send them out into those experiences, and really making sure that we are um, modeling or demonstrating
Mm.
what that should look like, to be a positive influence
Yes.
wherever you go. Um, I think about one of the things in my role that I've had to kind of work on is doing some different interprofessional education with our athletic training students. It's just part of
Ah,
what we have to do
yeah.
with other healthcare professions. And so, being in a small Christian school in the middle of Kansas, there's not any
Yeah.
other healthcare professions on campus, and there's not a ton super close by. And so, kind of stumbled upon a connection at a larger state institution.
Mm.
And we actually connect with one of their nurse practitioner programs
Mm.
and work alongside them. And even just the opportunity to show that what we do here is just a little bit different. And just to
Mm.
Mhm.
be able to show the word I just keep thinking of is the light of
Yeah,
what we do. Um,
absolutely.
and just I think that that's a priority for us, and
Yes.
I guess I think that just being even with people, whether it's, a seminar or like a research conference or something like that, whether it's other faith based individuals, or it is people that have no interest in faith whatsoever, um, showing them the inherent good that comes
Yes.
from what we're doing here, and showing them that we are also scholars, right? We're
Mhm.
still
Yes.
excellent in our field. It's not that we don't still pursue excellence in
Yes.
our various areas. And I think that for me, um, that's just been a fun kind of stretching experience that I've had the last several years of kind of getting outside of that comfort zone and having those interactions with people, more from institutions that are not like my own, um, and seeing what it's like there, but also showing them what we do here and showing them that what we do here has value and is still scholarly, is still excellent,
Yes.
is, we're still pursuing those things within our areas of discipline as well.
Yeah. I think that's
And
a very
doesn't it seem
important.
like
Go ahead,
sorry.
Allin. Yes,
I just
please.
quickly, I was going to say, and doesn't it seem like more important than ever that you mentioned the rigor and the academic side. I feel like in Christian education, we have to, I don't want to say we have to prove that, but we do have to be real clear and, that because there is a perception sometimes of Christian universities. So you do have to have that rigor. So when you had that partnership that you were talking about, it's because your
Yes.
programs were good first, and then you can have that entry. And
Yeah.
I think that's so crucial. Like when I teach communications and journalism, and when we send interns out into the world, I mean, they need to nail it, right? They need to, and they do. God bless them. I've been here 12 years, and they've almost every single one has just crushed it. But that's got to be first. They have to be really good at whatever it is they're doing, and then it's kind of like, okay, yeah, this is a Christian university, and so what's going on over there? So it seems like that has to, in certain settings, that has to come first, and so I think it's important for all of us to remember.
Yeah, very good. I won't editorialize on this, but the question is always, are you a Christian musician or are you a musician who plays Christian music? So I'll leave it there because that's always a proverbial question. But I think that, Nicole, what you're bringing up about that academic excellence and the scholarship, but also that reality of that illumination, that light. I want to toss out this next question. I think it has relevance because all of you shared about your expertise, right? And you shared about how your own development of what you create or the partnerships or the work that you've done. And so one of the things that happens in in all of higher ed, but certainly in Christian higher ed is, we have faculty who are adjuncts. And more, that seems to be something that we have to continue to do. So, I always say faculty who are adjuncts because of, my early years in higher ed. That's how, I started as faculty. I came in as an adjunct, raising 3 daughters. And so I always like to give them the esteem that they deserve, right? Because they are faculty after all. But what kinds of things, based on your expertise and knowledge and scholarship, since we're talking about, that, what might you consider things that you might, offer that faculty adjuncts could develop their skills for this idea that is so important, this faith and learning integration? So could you think of some best practice skills that you might say, this is what you should work on? What are some things? And just jump in, whatever's coming to your mind right now that you would like to say, hey, work on this. If you were mentoring or you were, kind of coming alongside, what might you tell them to do?
Yeah, we have quite a few adjuncts in our department specifically, so I do get the opportunity to mentor them and answer those random questions that they have. And with my role as the director for the integration of faith and learning,
Yes.
that they tend to be like, what does that even mean, right? What does that even look like? Do I have to read a Bible verse every day, or something like that? And my kind of first piece of advice, really to any faculty member, but especially a new faculty member or a faculty adjunct, is authenticity. That's kind of the word that I go back to, is authentically living your faith in a way that you're modeling for your students that you mean what you say, and that you really do believe all of this stuff that we talk about at Sterling College, right? And just that concept of pursuing kind of that desire to glorify God first, instead of being so caught up and worried about every little test question that needs to happen, right? And all of those things, to me, I think that when we're trying to encourage people to integrate faith into their classroom, it's first how they live it. And that's in the classroom, but that's also outside of the classroom. That's in their office hours. That's in how they respond to an email or a text message. That's, when they run into their student at the store. Those, how we live and the calling that God's placed on our lives to live a certain way is far more important than any content we're going to share in particular, or any one practice that we're going to implement into the classroom. And so I think that investing in the just continued spiritual renewal of our faculty and encouraging them to just let that authentically come out, right? And be just be who they are, because that's why they're here, is because they love being in a Christian institution and getting to be in their discipline.
That's good.
And so just do that, be that.
That's good. That's good. See, we're gonna build a book, for faculty adjuncts. So, Allin, what would you contribute to this book?
I am. I could help you edit it, because I'm just listening and getting some great ideas.
It's great.
I've written down, something you said, Nicole. Encourage. I am. I'm being new to the position. I just started this particular position this semester, and so I'm just now getting my arms around our adjuncts, and I've been planning for this for quite a while, and we've got them all over the country, and they're just so excellent. Of course, they have to. They do have to, have a statement of faith to be hired even as an adjunct. But I like something that you said, Nicole. Encourage. That's really. I mean, if I've got adjuncts in Kansas City and various states, and of course they come to our campus as well, I just want to be encouraging. I just want to be there to let them know that whatever you're thinking, if you're thinking about trying something new that may or may not work, but it integrates some sort of faith message into whatever you're doing. If you're teaching a speech class and you want to try something, related to your faith, try it. I just want to encourage them to try it, because it seems like when we have faith and learning workshops all the time, they're so valuable. And I think for us at Missouri Baptist University and probably all of our schools, the main mission is to keep doing the mission. It's like the best way to do faith and learning is to just keep doing it and just keep it at the front of our mind. Something I think you said early, Lena, was the word intentional. I think you said earlier in the conversation. And I think that's just kind of front and center for me. I just want to let our adjuncts know, don't be afraid to try something. If it doesn't work, that's okay. But if there's a way to have a faith-based conversation in a media interviewing class, let's try it. That kind of stuff. So I think that encouragement that you mentioned, Nicole, would be my only addition. That's just spot on. Very good.
That's great. Yeah, we're building our list. That's great. Emily.
I'm learning so much from my colleagues here. What came to mind was just the gospel itself when Jesus says, "Come and see." And I think that's the great invitation in the classroom, whether it's mentoring new faculty, adjunct faculty, or students and staff. It's that invitation to come and see. And so at the School of Public Policy at Pepperdine, we have adjunct faculty who are policy practitioners in their field all over the world, and they're teaching students. And so it's bringing excellence in that come and see how to do the work of public policy, whether it's in international relations or economics, state and local policy, like come and see how to do this well. But it's that invitation that Jesus extends to all of us as well, as come and see. And so opening up opportunity for mentoring and amongst the students, but in answer to your question, in support of adjunct faculty, it's come and see. And so at Pepperdine, we've got a coalition of the different schools, the graduate schools and the undergrad, with faculty and members of the administration all meeting together and saying, how can we support faculty? How can we support staff in that faith-based component as they're thinking through the spiritual formation of students as well, and being very intentional in that. It's not just the student, it's also thinking through how can we support the staff, and that includes adjunct.
Wow, that's really great. It's very interesting too that you're putting the right thing first, not just the tactical insert this, insert this, insert this, because you're actually creating the understanding that it comes from something from within, and you have to start there. And I think that that's the important thing. It's the incarnational that, as a follower of Christ, that's going to be internal. So just tap into that. And then of course, you're an expert in your field. And then after that, you can start developing some of your strategies, the pedagogical, if you will. So that's really great. I'm very encouraged to listen to you all. Go ahead.
One more thing.
Nicole.
I think that like what you were just saying, Lena, made me think of, we want our students to be able to go out and live their faith authentically, right? We want them to be able to go out and do that.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it comes back to modeling that and being intentional about that, and just making sure that we're, just being, I guess, just being intentional about it, right? Just making sure that we are actually living that and going back to keeping the main thing, because that's what we want them to do in their lives. And so if they see us do that in a very excellent way, then that will hopefully inspire them to do the same.
Nice. Well, shall we go to our closing question as we end this wonderful time together? But I would like to just prompt this last question. And I think it is important as we kind of, bring this, full circle. But in the ongoing quest to balance needs for resources, right? And we're thinking of like not just, a product of intangible resources, but also the tangible that we call money. So the balance needs for resources, including money, but also time and other valuable resources. What one or two important ways can administrators support you and your colleagues in this work? And I know that you all are working at some administrative level as well. But one of the prompts of this question is because sometimes we think, if we only had more money. But one of the things that we also want to explore is what are some things that administrators can do right now? Those that serve on our cabinets or other leadership levels that they can do right now that can support the work of, the integration of faith and learning. So is there something that you might want to just put out there to say, but you can do this right now? And we all know we need more resources. We all know that. And that's not a mystery. But what are some things that you could throw out there right now that you and your colleagues who are doing this good kingdom work could say, this is one or two ways that you can support us right now?
It seems like just giving us the space to do the things that we're already thinking about doing. I mean, I circle back to the Faith and Research Conference because no one kind of came up and said, hey, Allin, would you be willing to take this thing over? It's something I saw, I kind of felt led. I grapple with the word called, but I felt led by, to kind of take it over and see what I could do with it. And immediately the university, yes, we have very limited funds, but they gave me some release time and allowed me to hire a few more adjuncts to fill in some of the gaps so I could really focus on this thing. And then space was made available for us to host some various things. And our food services folks gave us a great price. Everybody kind of pitched in a little bit, pitched in together. My provost gave me a little money to work with, and so I could hire a few kids to help me out. So it kind of takes a village, to do that.
Yes.
You're right. It's not all about money. It's about it's about effort, I think. And everybody kind of pitches in and says, what can I do to help? And it was amazing to see what the kind of response I've gotten. It hasn't really required a great deal of money. We're still able to not charge a fee for our conference to come and present or attend. It's free, and I hope to keep it free forever. It might be the only free conference in the world that I know of. And
Wow.
that's my goal, to keep it that way if I can. And so our university has supported us, but we start small, and we everybody kind of pitches in. Old church, picnic style almost. Just
Yeah.
everybody's got a piece. What can I help with? I can do some marketing for you. I can build that program over there for your conference and make it look better than it did last year. And it
Yeah.
seems like that's kind of what it. And so then as you come away from that, you're like, I'm just so excited about how this turned out, because everybody
Yeah.
was so helpful. It's been a real blessing. It's kind of a picture of the
Yeah.
church in a way.
Well, it's bringing the body of Christ to Christian higher ed.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the body of Christ, from a church, embodiment, but to see
Mm-hmm.
what you're describing there, that's really a beautiful thing.
It's been a
Yeah,
real
that's
blessing.
a great example. That's a great example.
Thank you.
Some other examples, Nicole, Emily, jump right in.
I would say it's so important that, it goes back to that first question of the core, and what is this all for, and why does the university exist? And, in answering that question, if it's a faith-based institution, are we here in equipping students for lives of purpose, service, and leadership, in being a part of the kingdom? And so, as part of the support that administration can give is being on board and available and willing to listen and engage in the conversation, but support it through prayer. We can get busy doing, but really spending time in prayer, and that comes from top down. So being engaged fully.
That's great. Just those fundamental habits, that we say as followers of Christ, the essence of being Christians, prayer, and just this idea that it flows, and kind of infuses into our entire institution. And prayer, that's essential. And when you hear someone like a cabinet, that full cabinet says, we're having a call to prayer for this event, or this, whatever it might be, that's a powerful thing, and that's a powerful support. So thank you for that. Nicole, is there something that you'd like to add to an idea of support?
Yeah, I kind of jump on a little bit what Emily was saying, in that, to me, the biggest way that administrators can support these efforts is to really truly live these themselves. And so
It's good.
prioritizing that integration of faith and learning in their own life, and just that thought process of, even once we're done being a formal student and we're not in a formal classroom anymore, we're still learning. And if we're a Christian higher education institution, then that means we love education and learning, and we love Christ, right? So making sure that how we spend our time, how we spend our energy, and yes, our budget dollars, right? It should go towards those things that we say we prioritize,
Yeah.
and making sure that those are the priority. Yeah, and just, I think about, kind of in reflecting on this question, I was thinking about, a thought process of, when we do have events that, we have that are meant to encourage people in this area, or meant to facilitate growth in this area, administrators coming to those events. Like, I know
Yes.
administrators are very
Excellent.
busy. I know they're busy. But prioritizing that and making sure, because your time is so huge.
Yes.
There are a lot of things that we can figure out financially. There's God makes the money for what we need to have money for, is my philosophy. So otherwise we're supposed to get strategic with it. So I just think that when it comes to administrators supporting the integration of faith and learning, I think modeling it in their own life, and also showing your faculty and the staff that you prioritize it by participating in those events and being a part of those conversations. A lot of the things that we do here really do center around a lot of like roundtable discussions and things like that, and getting our administrators involved in that is huge. It's so huge, and it also really helps with the I would say like the camaraderie among administration and faculty, to be a part, to see the heart of the administrators in those roles, because I think sometimes they get a slightly bad rap because they have to make a lot of really hard decisions. But they, them being in those conversations is huge. And anytime we've had administrators join in on those things, it's been the biggest support and probably the most important thing that I would ever ask for in my role at Sterling, is just prioritize it and be there, because it means the world to me too, selfishly. But it really does show that it's important instead of just saying that it's important.
I think that goes really back to that come and see, right? And it's that invitation in, but it means so much, not only to staff and to faculty, but also to the students, to see exactly what Nicole was saying. This matters. Yes. And it matters enough to show up and participate. And engage in the conversation. And so it's that come and see that's holistic from every level.
That's so good.
It's like when your president's rolling up his sleeves in Uganda, I think you mentioned earlier. I mean, that is there a better picture than that? And when I do the Faith and Research Conference, and my provost and my president say, do you mind saving me a chair? Like, so they can kind of sneak in and out all day long. And I'm like, of course, and it's so important. When our President Ross walks into the room and sits down, students are walking by, it's kind of in a glassed in room. And so students see that, they notice that, they pay attention to it. Nicole, you're spot on, that they notice, and you're right. It does start right there.
Yeah. So we could say 3 P's, right? Participate, pray, and be present.
Right on.
Well, this has gone very quickly because it's been so delightful and so meaningful. All 3 of you have contributed so much to this conversation. We've just begun, and yet there's so much more ahead. But you've really sealed some very important and foundational nuggets that I think can be sustained and really be meaningful for those that want to continue in these conversations, and also activate this this work of integration. So you've given them the ways to integrate faith and learning. So thank you so much, all 3 of you, and blessings upon your work, and may you know God's delight in what you are doing with and for him. So thank you again.